Have you ever wondered what the media and big tech is hiding from you? Like massive stories that actually affect you in your life that they don't want you to see because they make the left and the Biden administration look bad. Well, now there's a podcast dedicated to exposing all of that each and every day. So download the fastest growing podcast in the conservative movement, the Ben Ferguson Show podcast right now. That's right. You can listen to Ben Ferguson Show podcast on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Download it right now.
All right, thanks, Scott Shannon, and thanks to all of you for being with us. 4 days till the all-important midterm elections. This is your opportunity to right the ship or begin the process of righting the ship and get this country away from the damaging, radical, extreme policies of Joe Biden and the new Green Deal socialist agenda. What did I say about socialism? It's whatever name, whatever manifestation, whatever form it takes on, it always results in the same thing. And that is unfulfilled promises, more poverty, not less poverty. And then you calculate how much of your freedoms you sacrificed in the name of false security. That's new Green Dealism. Guaranteed pre-K, guaranteed government education, guaranteed student loan forgiveness, guaranteed a government job with a government guaranteed wage, guaranteed health care, guaranteed daycare. Guaranteed retirement, guaranteed cradle to grave, womb to tomb. Doesn't work. Never has, never will. Democrats are getting extraordinarily desperate. They are freaking out. I got a long montage. I'm going to play it. Add to this, by the way, the House Majority Whip. This is James Clyburn, literally saying that the U.S. is on track to repeat Nazi Germany, downplaying inflation. Ahead of the midterms. The country is on track to repeat what happened in Germany when it was the greatest democracy going, when it elected a chancellor and then co-opted the media. What do you mean co-opted? The media is in the pocket of liberal Democrats. Anyway, he said this to Fox News Digital. This past president called the press the enemy of the people. That's a bunch of crap. And that's what's going on in the country. I mean, they're now losing their mind. I mean, you got, they've gone so extreme. You've got people like Tiffany Cross out there over at MSDNC, who apparently just got fired, calling, the governor of Florida the male body part, the word that begins with a D of the country, and insults Ron DeSantis. You got Joyless Behar. Republicans have taught people the word inflation. I'm sorry, that was Joy Reid that said that. Joyless Behar is out there scaring people, saying that Republicans are a cult. And everyone has pretty much lost their mind. Michael Beschloss, a GOP victory in the midterms will mean our children will be arrested and probably killed. Sonny Houston over there at The View, that hard-hitting news show on ABC, comparing white women voting for Republicans is like roaches voting for Raid. You can't make it up. Ron Klain, Biden's speech was one final warning. And then, of course, the January 6th, I hate Trump part of their campaign strategy, that didn't work. That faded out. Then their fear mongering on abortion being illegal in America. Yeah, Americans figured out that was a big lie, too. Now the only thing they got is their old playbook, that Republicans are racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, transphobic, want dirty air and water. That's their plan. And they want grandma and grandpa to be thrown over a cliff in a wheelchair by Donald Trump, a Donald Trump lookalike. And, of course, Republicans are going to take your Social Security, your Medicare, and veterans benefits away. That's a lie, too. And that happens every 2 years, every 4 years. Anyway, just listen to how insane they have gotten. And remember, it's all rooted in the fact that they can't run on a single item where they can say, we put this policy in place and we're successful. They can't say it about the economy. They can't say it on energy. They can't say it as it relates to open borders and the human trafficking and the aiding and abetting of our president, Joe Biden, has allowed 4.5 million illegal immigrants to enter this country under his watch. We had secure borders. We had energy independence. We had an economy that had next to zero, really next to zero inflation, not like the Biden lie. We have 9 months of a 40-year high of inflation. You can blame the Democrats for the defunding the police and no bail laws. How's that working out around the country? Not well, because we have record murders, record violent crime, record crime in general, because they're not punishing the people that commit the crimes. How's this? All of a sudden they're pushing indoctrination of our kids, gender identity education, CRT education. And meanwhile, test scores are a disaster. Our kids can't read, write, do math, science. They know nothing about history. And they certainly are not proficient at computers either, unless it's a computer game that gamers might like. But anyway, this is the greatest evidence that they are in a state of utter denial and panic as they fearmonger about Armageddon. It's a long montage. Listen.
We got scared the hell out of them because, quite frankly, Nicole, they should be afraid.
Can I just say one last thing? No, you're not voting for Republicans. You're voting for a cult. Remember that. It's a cult. It's not Republicans anymore.
Never before since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock has America been in such danger. A historian will say what was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system.
They live in that really slimy little dark corner where all they want to do is lie. All they want to do is appeal to grievance, to the worst common denominator.
But what's also surprising to me is the abortion issue. I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid, right?
The only people I ever heard here use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it.
You think you're losing your rights now? What do you think is going to happen if we don't have democracy? You know what, African Americans, particularly African American men who are showing the lowest motivation to turn out in this midterm, you think things are tough for you right now? Where do you think you're going to stand in a country, in America, where there's no democracy, where they have absolutely no interest in respecting your rights?
This is what happens in a country that follows what happened in Germany in the early 30s. And that's what's going on in this country.
They're nuts. Historian Michael Beschloss literally takes the game. If historians are even allowed to write in this country, if there's still free publishing houses and a free press, which I am not certain of, but if that is true, a historian will say what was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future or whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system, and it could be a week away. You just can't make this up. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. You know, where did Joy Reid come up with this idea that everyday Americans never heard the word inflation? Yeah, they did. It's part of the lexicon. It's been for many, many decades. Or joyless Behar out there. They're a cult. I think, you know, for the House Majority Whip to say the U.S. is on track to repeat Nazi Germany and then downplay the inflation that is really real. We have an update in this Paul Pelosi case I'm going to get to in a second, but I want to point this out. You know, after Paul Pelosi's attack, what did we say? We said this can't happen in our country, especially with the Speaker of the House. She needs Secret Service protection. If you're third in line to the presidency, in other words, something or second, depending on how you do your math. If the president becomes incapacitated, is out of power, the vice president takes over. The next person in line would be the Speaker of the House. I assume that's why taxpayers, you pay for a private jet for Nancy Pelosi to go from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. for safety and security. I don't know why she didn't have security at her house, but apparently she didn't. And everyone was saying, see, this is MAGA Republicans. We didn't make the same case after the ball field was shot up and Steve Scalise nearly lost his life. And the shooter was a big Bernie Sanders and Rachel Maddow supporter, because you hold people accountable. There are crazy people out there. That's all it is. In this case, you had an illegal immigrant in a sanctuary city and state that committed this crime. But yet General Bolduc, some guy takes a swing at him before the debate that they had 2 nights ago, and the media totally, completely, and utterly ignores it. He had the home of North Carolina Republican congressional candidate, a Chicago man, went after this Republican candidate in North Carolina Anyway, it's in the last 48 hours, you have Don Bolduc, a Chicago man arrested by making serious death threats against the Illinois gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey and his children. Now we're learning this Republican congressional candidate in North Carolina had his home shot up last month while his children were sleeping inside. Anyway, this is Pat Harrigan. According to his parents, his children were sleeping in the home only a few feet from where a single bullet pierced a window. Harrigan's campaign manager telling the Carolina Journal on Thursday. Police report obtained by the Post confirmed the firearm was used in this incident. And they're investigating. They don't know who did it. But if you're listening to Democrats, they're only going to talk about Paul Pelosi. Just like they only care about the January 6th riot, they don't care about the 574 riots that they told us were mostly peaceful or they just completely ignored. Dozens dead, thousands of injured cops, billions in property damage. Anyway, so this are horrors. This Republican's candidate's daughters, 3 and 5, were almost killed by a gunman. This Thursday. How come we haven't heard about any of this? Where's the investigation in all this? Where are Democrats talking about the radical rhetoric of the left that has been out there? I don't know what to make of this story in the Daily Mail today, but it talks about the mystery of Paul Pelosi's hammer attack is deepened. Now, according to this report, it says a seemingly calm Paul Pelosi opened the door to the police officers. He called 911. Some guy's in his house. Then the police officers show up. They respond. Anyway, he never let on, apparently, that he was in any distress at all whatsoever. Just seconds before, he opens the door and he says, instead of telling the police officers to come in and help, I got this guy in here with a hammer. Apparently, Pelosi calmly greeted the police at the door. No signs of injuries that they mentioned, retreated several feet back, went back into the foyer, and that's where police actually witnessed this guy, this illegal immigrant guy, strike him with the hammer. They nearly killed him. Now, they did go on to say it's not clear if he was already injured, but there was no indication, according to the police report. We'd like to get the body cam footage. We're going to put in a FOIA request on that. And by the way, I've never doubted his story for a second. But if somebody breaks into your house and you call the police and the police show up, is your reaction going to be, nonchalant and walk back into the hallway and not have any sense of urgency? Or are you going to run out and say, this guy's trying to kill me? Go get him and run out of the house and let the professionals do their job. Especially if you don't believe in self-defense. So that's very strange. That does not seem like the normal reaction one would have. I'm glad the guy's okay, meaning Paul Pelosi. But this story is strange. That is not a normal reaction if somebody is being attacked by a stranger in their own home that has a hammer. So I think we need to get to the bottom of that. But as far as any violence, we condemn violence on this program. We just do. Broadly, I don't want anybody being attacked. You know what? There's a lot of dangerous people. That's why no bail laws are stupid. That's why defunding the police is idiotic. We need to protect Americans. You can't pursue happiness if you don't have safety and security with law and order and the law upheld. You have this guy, 25 attacks. He rapes this girl in the West Village. 25 times he was in custody. He belonged in jail. New York bail laws set him free. A husband becomes violent with his wife, goes to jail. They set him free, comes out, kills his wife in front of his own children. They had him in jail for violence. It's insane.
Have you ever wondered what the media and big tech is hiding from you? Like massive stories that actually affect you in your life that they don't want you to see because they make the left and the Biden administration look bad. Well, now there's a podcast dedicated to exposing all of that each and every day. So download the fastest growing podcast in the conservative movement, the Ben Ferguson Show podcast right now. That's right. You can listen to Ben Ferguson Show podcast on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Download it right now. Have you ever wondered what the media and big tech is hiding from you? Like massive stories that actually affect you in your life that they don't want you to see because they make the left and the Biden administration look bad. Well, now there's a podcast dedicated to exposing all of that each and every day. So download the fastest growing podcast in the conservative movement, the Ben Ferguson Show podcast right now. That's right. You can listen to Ben Ferguson Show podcast on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Download it right now.
Something is just going on here. Look, we had just said, I hope Paul Pelosi's okay. We don't need anybody attacked. I believe that a speaker should have Secret Service protection, and left it at that. I know other people, went out there with this theory, that theory, but this Daily Mail account is bizarre. That Paul Pelosi very nonchalantly answers the door. It called 911. The police get there. He doesn't tell them. He doesn't run out saying there's this guy with a hammer trying to kill me. But he just, welcomes the police in very calmly. Didn't say he was in distress. Didn't leave the home. Takes several steps back. Goes back into the foyer where the intruder is. And the police watch the attack on Paul Pelosi. Now, it's gotten so bad that NBC has now deleted their report from their website. And anyway, and they're saying that it did not meet our reporting standards. That's NBC saying that. So even they suspect something is off here, because that's not a normal reaction. Think about it. Somebody breaks into your home. You're there. They've got a hammer. You see they have a weapon. The average person, and especially if you don't believe in self-protection, you don't have any means of self-protection, you call the police, gets the call out to 911, then the police show up. What's your reaction going to be? Thank you for being here. The guy's right in there. Go get him. There's going to be some urgency. Oh, come on in, guys. And then walks back to where the guy with the hammer is, and apparently had brought the hammer because he wanted to break Nancy Pelosi's legs if she didn't answer the way he wanted to. Some nut job. I mean, it's insane. So now NBC is saying, yeah, our report didn't meet our own standards. I'm like, oh boy, where's the body cam footage? We won't see it before the election, but where is it? Where was, by the way, why didn't she have protection? She's the Speaker of the House. 25 till the top of the hour. Thank you for being with us. 4 days till the all-important midterm elections. Best election coverage available on your radio dial. 800-941-SEAN is our number. So the media, and by the way, I thought they gave, I don't think it's inappropriate attention to give to an attack against the Speaker of the House's husband. The fact that they politicize it and they blame Republicans and conservatives and their rhetoric is causing all of this. Well, we have a lot of rhetoric out there today. They're going to say the same thing about the rhetoric of James Clyburn, for example, who's, now out there making comparisons to Nazi Germany. The left's rhetoric is absolutely unhinged at this particular point. Ron Klain, Biden's speech is one final warning. How are we supposed to interpret that? Or Democrats lying in one unison voice. It's a complete lie that Republicans they're going to cut Social Security and Medicare and VA benefits. No, they're not. It's a complete lie. Sonny Houston comparing white suburban women voting Republican. It's like a roach voting for Raid. You can't make it up. And you got Joyless Behar. It's a cult, the Republican Party. It's not a party anymore. Though the climate alarmist cult has gotten us into this financial mess that I don't think we're getting out of. And you got Kathy Hochul out there saying, repealing the bail laws, the ones that allowed this violent husband to get out and kill the mother of his children in front of the children. That bail law. Yeah, she said that this would be a simplistic approach. How about refunding the NYPD, the $1 billion that they cut there? Republicans seem to be hoping for a recession, Joe Biden said. No, you caused one. By any definition, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, that's called a recession. Economy's up, inflation is down, real incomes are up, gas prices are down. They make this up. There's nothing that they can say that they've done that is successful. Bill Clinton is out there saying Republicans want you to be miserable, angry, and vote for them, to blame Democrats. Well, who should we blame for a 41-year high of inflation? Who are we supposed to blame for record high gas prices? Who do we blame for open borders? Who do we blame for defund, dismantle, and no bail laws? That would be his party, the Democratic Party. You know, it's Stacey Abrams called for the GOP voting laws, Jim Crow 2.0. And lo and behold, they got record turnout. Now Stacey Abrams says black voter turnout is extraordinary despite all of the impediments of GOP voting laws. Oh, it's a nice way to try and get out of it. But they absolutely have gone insane. Joy Reid over at MSDNC. Republicans have taught people the word inflation for political gain. No, everybody that's listening to this program has heard the word inflation before. Tiffany Cross calling, well, I told you about the Florida governor. The fear-mongering, the Armageddon talk, Ron Klain, Biden's speech is a final warning. You know, we have montage after montage. Democrats claiming Republicans will cut your Social Security, Medicare, and they're going to cut the benefits of veterans. Another view, Sonny Houston again, comparing white women voting for Republicans like roaches voting for Raid. Michael Beschloss may be my favorite. A GOP victory in the midterms will mean our children will be arrested and probably killed. I'm like, okay, you've lost your mind, all of you. And it doesn't surprise me. How come they have ignored the attacks on Don Bolduc? Democrats? How about why have they ignored the Chicago man arrested after making death threats against the Republican gubernatorial candidate we had on this program yesterday? Why isn't the news media worked up like they were about Paul Pelosi's attack? Why aren't they as animated about the shot being fired into the home of this North Carolina congressional candidate? You don't hear anything about this. The media's completely ignored all of those stories. They don't want to talk about it, but we have a House Majority Whip saying the U.S. is on track to repeat Nazi Germany. This country is on track to repeat what happened in Germany when it was the greatest democracy going, when it elected a chancellor that co-opted the media. This past president called the press the enemy of the people. He's been out of office for nearly 2 years. What does this have to do? This is a bunch of crap. What's going on in this country? James Clyburn, third highest ranking Republican. Welcome to the left's rhetoric. This is what they're now saying. This is what they now believe. Over at MSDNC, Chris Hayes, if you care about democracy, then you must vote for Democrats. Okay. Don Lemon urging Hillary Clinton to speak to the threat of democracy in America. All right. Can we all echo Joe Biden's dumb speech? Because that's what this is. A California professor erupting, saying about Christian white men on PBS, they will cause a civil war. Columbian Journalism School professor says Herschel Walker's Senate run is a stain on American democracy. Calls Herschel Walker a token black puppet of the GOP. Rob Reiner, meathead from All in the Family days, is joining the long list of Hollywood libs who think democracy is over if the GOP is elected. Quote, not hyperbole. A vote for a Republican is a vote to end democracy. Okay. I think we've had enough. Hillary Clinton says Republicans, their crime ads offer no solutions. Yes, they do, Hillary. The solution is refund the police and get rid of these idiotic no bail laws. Let's start there. And she was campaigning with Kathy Hochul. But my favorite is, if Republicans win, they will kill our children. I mean, Linda, am I making any of this up? The same Sadly, people no. Lecturing conservatives that's saying that their rhetoric is going to cause political violence. No, that's what they're saying. Anyway, Joe Biden now claiming he was once a college professor. He was not. Speaking in central New Mexico, college in Albuquerque. I spent more time with leaders in China than any other world leader has. When I was, of course he did, because he made a fortune. That's how the Biden family syndicate got a $1.5 billion favorable deal with the Bank of China, got a $100,000 shopping spree with a Chinese national, and got a zero interest forgivable $5 million loan from the communist Chinese. Now, don't you all wish you can get a forgivable, interest-free $5 million loan from the communist Chinese? Because forgivable means you can keep it. Don't worry about it. And he was only an honorary professor at an Ivy League school, didn't teach a single class for $1 million. What a racket the Biden's family syndicate has going on there. It's unbelievable. On the economy, major companies are announcing tens of thousands of layoffs as the Biden recession this is all going to get deeper. It's going to get worse, and it's going to be bad. And there's going to be a lot of unnecessary suffering out there. But Microsoft now announcing layoffs across multiple divisions. On Monday, Microsoft declined to say how many jobs have been cut. Source says the layoffs number 1,000. Fox Business is saying financial services giant Stripe laid off 14% of their workforce. What else? Ford Motor Company is expected to cut up to 8,000 jobs, reduce costs, and intensify their focus on electric vehicles. Anyway, International Distribution Services, they plan to lay off 10,000 jobs by next August because of rising losses. A wind turbine company is laying off 2,900 jobs, stating delivery delays, rise in material costs as part of the turnaround plan. Peloton, the exercise company, they're laying off 800 people across its customer service distribution departments. Peloton laid off roughly 3,000 workers in February and cut more than 500 overseas roles last month. Wayfair, the online home goods retailer, they're laying off close to 900 people. Want me to keep going? HelloFresh, they're getting rid of 600 jobs. Elon Musk says half of Twitter's workforce is gone. They're done. He's firing them. The Gap, they're laying off 500 corporate jobs. Anyway, you have Noom, a health coaching platform valued at $3.7 billion. They laid off around 500 people, 10% of their workforce because of the Biden economy. By the way, ironically, Joe Biden was complaining oil companies should be drilling more after vowing to end fossil fuels. Why don't you just finish the Keystone XL pipeline, open up AMWR, and give assurances in writing that the federal government will pay back the oil companies if they decide to invest in exploration and extraction of oil and if they move forward with fracking plans. Because they don't trust you, Joe. You change your mind every second. And at the end of the day, this election's going to come and it's going to go. And you're going to go right back to capitulating to the radicals that run your party. Because everybody knows that's what's going to happen. That's the problem. Anyway, Republicans, if they get control, they've laid out a 1,005-page report alleging that we have been right all along, that the FBI has been politicized, the DOJ has been weaponized. Now we're getting more intel that these whistleblowers saying that the FBI is, quote, rotted at its core. A Republican report on alleged misconduct. Anyway, they released it today, detailing whistleblower allegations of FBI misconduct. Remember, Merrick Garland said, just a reminder, you're not allowed to talk to members of Congress in the House or in the Senate. What did that mean? It's against, what, DOJ policy? We have whistleblower protection laws. Anyway, the FBI, under the stewardship of Christopher Wray and Attorney General Merrick Garland, is, quote, broken, the GOP report states. The problem, quote, lies not with the majority of frontline agents, I've always said the 99%, who serve our country, but with the FBI's politicized bureaucracy. Republicans on the House Judiciary say that this report is the first comprehensive accounting of the FBI's problems to date. Look at the Russia collusion hoax. We now know in early October 2016, they offer Christopher Steele $1 million to prove his dirty dossier that Hillary paid for was true. And it turns out he never got his million because he could never prove it because none of it was true. What's their answer? To, at the end of the month, use that dossier and say that it's verified to a FISA court and it's not verifiable. It's all debunked, and then use it as the bulk of information to obtain the FISA warrants. And then when they've talked to Danchenko, the subsource, the main source of Christopher Steele, he tells them it's all BS and bar talk, and they put him on the payroll. You can't make this up. This is a big deal. Let me tell you two big things Republicans will get if they get in power. Now, they're not going to be able to change everything. They'll be able to vote and show the country the other direction we can go in. But their real power will lie in two big areas. One will be the power of the subpoena, and two will be the power of the purse. Those are their two most powerful weapons. But to really fix this country, it's got to be a two-step process. Win in 2022, get a majority, and these races are close. And I want to remind all of you, I've been saying this every day, I'll say it throughout this program today. If you look at the race in Georgia for the U.S. Senate, that's Herschel Walker. if you look at Ted Budd in North Carolina, if you look at General Don Bolduc, who's up a point in 2 polls today in New Hampshire, if you look at Dr. Oz up only 2 points in an insider advantage poll today, it's a very tight race. All of these are tight races. Include J.D. Vance, include Ron Johnson, include Adam Laxalt, include Blake Masters. A new poll out, Insider Advantage, has Blake Masters tied. It's dead even. If you add and include Tiffany Smiley in the state of Washington against Patty Murray, which is dead even, when you get to the final numbers and you do the math, I'll predict it's going to be less than 100,000 votes that will determine the power in the Senate. Now, if that does not convince you that your vote matters, your participation matters, how close this really is, and these people that are predicting this red wave, now the conditions are ripe for a red wave. The economy can't be any worse. Things are really bad at our border. Woke education is really taking root in many schools. Defund no bail laws has resulted in record crime all across the board in small towns and big cities. So the conditions are right to win. But it's really going to take all of you to understand the math here. Half the country's nuts. That's all there is to it. And one side is going to win and one side's going to lose. It's either going to be Herschel Walker, Ted Budd, Herschel Walker, or Raphael Warnock. Raphael Warnock, I mean, the guy is a left-wing lunatic. Another guy, police are thugs and gangsters. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, the single biggest advocate for convicted murderers, and wants to set half the prison population in, free in Pennsylvania. Wants it to be a sanctuary state. Wants taxpayers to pay for free heroin injection sites. Mandela Barnes, another one, wants half the prison population to be set free. Wants no cash bail on all of these things. They all want, by the way, the end of the legislative filibuster. If Democrats win this in the Senate, all of that's going to happen. All of it. Court packing, end of the legislative filibuster, D.C. statehood, and who knows, God, what else they'll do. They're nuts. But it's close. 100,000 will determine the balance of power in the Senate. That means Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. That means Wisconsin. That means the great state of Ohio. That means Arizona. That means the state of Washington. That means Nevada. It's up to you, America. 800-941-SEAN, our number.
Have you ever wondered what the media and big tech is hiding from you? Like massive stories that actually affect you in your life that they don't want you to see because they make the left and the Biden administration look bad. Well, now there's a podcast dedicated to exposing all of that each and every day. So download the fastest growing podcast in the conservative movement, the Ben Ferguson Show podcast, right now. That's right. You can listen to Ben Ferguson Show podcast on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Download it right now.